All right, I'd like to call the September 20th, 2021 Duvall Special Council meeting to order at 4:07 p.m. Would you please join me in the flag salute? As soon as Jody gets the flag up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Berdnicki.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer. Councilmember McHenry.
Here.
Councilmember Remington.
Here.
Councilmember Hoag.
Here.
Councilmember Napland.
Here.
Councilmember Langle.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve this evening's council agenda?
I move to approve the council agenda.
I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And do we have any comments from the audience this evening? Looks like we do not have any attendees. Clerk, did you receive anything via email?
Did not.
All right. With that, we are going to exit to an executive session to discuss qualifications of an applicant for public employment under RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub G. We will recess. We will come back and recess from approximately 5 to 6 p.m. for a public candidate meet and greet at Depot Park, the Police Department, City Hall, and the King County Library. And then we will come back for new business at approximately 6:15 p.m. to conduct the council portion of the city administrator candidate interviews. So with that, we will resume to executive session. I wanted to just first off say welcome to Deborah Needham. She is the first interviewee for the Duvall City Council portion of the city administrator interview and review process. The Mayor Pro Tem's, we all have the list of interview questions, and the Mayor Pro Tem's going to go ahead and assign numbers to each council member. And Deborah, it'll be very similar to what we've done in our speed interviews and panel interview and what have you. So it should be a familiar format for you. And Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add as we kick off this process?
I really don't. It's all in front of you. I think we're ready to go when Mayor Pro Tem assigns questions.
All right.
Well, Mayor, I'm happy to assign questions.
Okay, so I think you and I have the first two, and so we'll just, I assume, go around and assign folks.
I will. Dot mentioned she didn't have the ability for side by side. Does everybody have the questions with them? Amy McHenry?
Is it possible? Yeah, I can find it really quick. I can minimize on my phone, so it won't be a problem. If we're not going to share a screen, that's fine.
Okay. So the mayor has question 1. I'll have question 2. Diane, you'll have question 3. Michelle, question 4. Jennifer, question 5. Amy, question 6. Councilmember McHenry, question 6. Michelle, I'll give you 7. I'll take number 8. Diane, I'll give you number 9. Let's see, I'll take number 10 and the mayor number 11.
Perfect. All right. Well, if everyone on the panel is ready, we'll begin. So first of all, Deborah, please tell us about yourself and what qualities and experience you can provide Duvall after reading the city's recruitment brochure. You're on mute.
That's like the first few words out of everyone's mouth is, oh. So thank you, Mayor. My background has been pretty diverse with what I have done. Most recently, I've been the emergency management director in the city of Renton. And so I've had an opportunity to work with and touch every single department within our city. So I wrote our original continuity of operations plan. And so I've gotten down deep into all of the mission critical functions of every single department. So that's the job that's on paper, and that's what they pay me for. In addition to that, I've also been working on the Renton results team, which does internal improvements within the city of Renton. So I'm allotted up to 20% of my time working on those projects, which is improving organizational excellence, doing process improvements. I've developed a mentoring program for the city to be training our next generation of leaders from within. So those are in general. How detailed, I don't know how much time we have total, so I guess that would help me plan my time.
35 to 40 minutes.
Okay. So I think in a nutshell, that's it. I do have a public safety background. Long ago, I was a paramedic. That was ancient history, though. That was my very first career. So I'm familiar with some of the public safety concerns and needs in that arena as well. So I guess I'll leave it at that, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Our next question, what most intrigues you about serving the city of Duvall and what gets you most excited?
It might be both the same thing, but let's see. So what intrigues me and excites me? I love smaller towns. That is actually where my heart is. I came originally, before I came to Renton, I was living just outside of Battleground, Washington, a town of 12,000 at the time. And I think it's now a little bit bigger. But we were pretty far out, and I loved the feel of a community, the connectedness that a community has. And so that's one of the things that excites and intrigues me. But in the recruitment pamphlet, what really intrigued me and excited me was the type of person that you're looking for, someone who will not micromanage, someone who will support a team, who will do a lot of listening. That actually really appeals to me, because that fits with my management style, and it fits with the way that I work. So I think that in a nutshell, that would be my answer.
Thank you.
So as the city administrator, you are an important part of the city's leadership team, along with the mayor. What is the most collaborative project you've led, and what stands out?
Boy, the most collaborative, I think it's 100% of my work. Right now, I have no power to compel anyone to do anything, really. I have to work everything through relationships. And so everything that we do in my division is all done by collaboration. And so one of the things that I pulled together at the city of Renton is we have a regular group that has departmental representatives that meet together monthly. We talk about how to make the city safer, how to make the city more resilient. And so everything that we do is oriented around everybody working together. We've come up with great grant ideas together. So we put together the hazard mitigation plan. I work with all of the departments on developing and honing their ideas. We make sure we vet them across departments, so there's not conflicts, that we're not competing for the same money. So we have a clear idea of the city's priorities going forward. And so it's kind of everything I do. Everything is cross-connected because it's an interdisciplinary field.
Thank you.
Question 4, like many municipalities, we face challenges in recruiting new employees. What strategies have you used to address these challenges and to attract underrepresented groups? How successful were these strategies?
So one of the things that I have done when recruiting for my team is I make sure that I reach out of our normal channels. We recruited two times, one successfully, one unsuccessfully, to get folks to work specifically with our language community. So we did successfully recruit someone to work with our Spanish speaking community. And so that was done by reaching out through the channels we were using. We were using a Vista AmeriCorps program channel. So we were recruiting through them, but we also sent it out to the Spanish speaking media so that they were able to do some recruitment for us as well, talked with people that we knew. We were successful with that one. We were not as successful recruiting for our Vietnamese representatives. So we were trying to get somebody to work directly with our Vietnamese community, and we were not able to secure someone for that. What we have also done is we have taken on volunteers and interns, and I tend to reach out to schools and programs that have a lot of people who are wanting to get into the field and then reach out to them. I've taken on a number of interns who were from our minority communities. We have one young woman of color who's trying to break into the field. And so I worked with her and found her an opportunity to do a project where she could gain experience. I have not been able to, she did not make it past the interview panel, unfortunately, and I was not able to hire her, but she's certainly gotten good experience and her portfolio has increased as a result. So I've been trying to add to that in the recruiting that I have done. I guess I should add, I do have another volunteer who just did successfully land after working with us for about 6 months and taking on some significant projects. She was able to get a full-time job with King County.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I was
So I
so
think-
busy saying that I didn't realize it was my turn. How do you find ways to lead when opinions are vastly different and sometimes polarized?
I actually kind of like dealing with polarization because it's an opportunity for listening. And I think when you really deeply listen to both sides of what seem to be opposites, you'll often find that they hold similar values, but in different priority order. And so getting people to recognize that they have some shared values with the other side is huge in getting people to be able to find a way to come together and come to a solution together. So listening and facilitating listening to me is really the key in dealing with polarization.
Please give us an example of when you disagreed with your supervisor or governing body and how that disagreement evolved. How did it get resolved?
Let's see. I haven't had a lot of disagreements, so just give me just a minute. Well, I can tell you one that's, I'll give you two examples, one from the past that was resolved, and then one that is pending that I'm waiting to see how it works out. And they're very similar. The first one was a few years ago, and I was asked to look at and rethink our facility use. And our current facility that we had at the time was a large room that was used for the Emergency Operations Center, and it was a training room or conference room at other times. And my supervisor asked me to, he said, I want to find a way to put offices in there. And I was very opposed to it. I had very strong feelings about it. But I also shift quickly once I have considered why would he be asking and how could I make it work? And so he said, I want to put offices in there. I said, it can't be done. That was my first response. And I went home that night and I played with an architect program on my computer. And by golly, I figured out a way it could be done. So by morning, I had seen a way it could be done. I explored it. I got a grant and he was very happy. I was able to get him what he asked for. So I had my initial reaction of didn't think it was possible, but I checked myself. I looked at the possibilities, considered his point of view, and I actually found I thought he was right. And it worked out very, very well. The one that probably is pending right now is that as we're looking at different ways to utilize our city hall, I've been asked to, since we will be maintaining a partial hybrid telework schedule for my team, we've been asked to relocate our main offices to the Emergency Operations Center. I'm not a fan of that. I think that we are going to miss opportunities for those water cooler conversations, for those chance happenings in the hall where you get work done and you just see someone and you get it done right there on the spot. And so I'm not a fan of the move for my team because of the way all of our work is collaboration. It's all across department lines. And so I think that where that will go is I will probably negotiate what I've requested is landing zones at City Hall so that we can have a place just to stop and have like a place to put a laptop and pull up a chair, not a full office. But I've requested that we have landing zones at City Hall. And so we're looking at that as a possibility, but that has not yet been determined. I think that that will meet the goal of reducing office space footprint in City Hall while also meeting our team's needs to be able to have a way, someplace to have a landing zone at City Hall so we can have those cross connections with people.
Thank you.
So what skills and experience are you seeking to develop or improve? And how do you plan to accomplish such for yourself and with your leadership team?
So I have not before managed an entire city. And so one of the things that I am really excited about and where I'm looking forward to growing is being able to finally get my arms around the big picture. That excites me. And so things that I've touched before and I've been involved with and I've understood, I've never had the opportunity to directly engage and influence like daily operations. So that possibility and that ability to be able to make things better on some level, facilitate, support other people. That's an area I'd like to push my skills into, doing the bigger picture.
Thank you.
Deborah, share an example of how you worked with a group of residents to address a common concern they raised. And please provide a particular difficult constituent interaction and how you handled it.
So could you repeat the question one more time? And I'm going to turn my volume up just a little bit. There's some noise outside the window here. So
happy to. Share an example of how you worked with a group of residents to address a common concern they raised. And please provide a particular difficult constituent interaction and how you handled it.
So with the residents, I think maybe a good example would be flooding. So one of the things that I participate in on a regular basis is we have the Cedar River runs right through Renton, and so we do have a flooding risk. Although we're fortunate that we don't flood often, but there is a flooding risk, and so the residents are always very interested in wanting to have good communication and know when the river is going to rise and how are we going to let them know. So the King County Flood Warning Center and King County's Flood Control District put together regular forums, and I've made sure that I've attended those whenever I'm available and they're happening. I attend also for the Renton residents who are there because they do have a lot of concerns about flooding. I can't say that I've had a few interactions with people, but mostly people are just happy that someone from Renton is there. So I've been available and able to answer their questions. Our flood people are also there. So our flood control manager always attends those. I guess I'm struggling though for a difficult interaction. Could you rephrase that last part again?
Please provide a particular difficult constituent interaction and how you handled it.
We've actually, in our division, we've been pretty popular, so it hasn't been that difficult for me. I think, gosh, okay, boy, constituent, but also a volunteer. I don't know if that counts. We had a difficult volunteer relationship with one volunteer who was not gelling well with the volunteer group. And so I met with him. He was, there were enough concerns around the situation that it warranted terminating his volunteer status, unfortunately. And so when I met with him, I asked him to meet with me privately. We sat down, him and I and the fire chief at the time, and we sat and talked through the issues. I had an opportunity to sit with him first. And so I established rapport with him. I complimented him on his hat because I have a lot of hats. And so I'm a hat person. And we established a really warm connection in that meeting, even though it was going to be a difficult conversation because we were terminating his volunteer status. we had a good conversation. And so we ranged quite over a lot of different topics, and I listened, we interacted. At the end of it, he left feeling good about himself, even though he was no longer going to be volunteering with us. And so I saw that as a successful interaction, even though it was a difficult conversation to have. I can honestly say I have not had any angry constituents or upset constituents, because I have, I can't even recall someone I've gotten. Once in a while, I get a phone message. People call thinking that I'm the 911 number. I've occasionally gotten those calls, but those are simply misdirected calls.
Thank you.
The job of city administrator can involve many hours. How do you establish work-life balance?
That's a good question. I have been getting some experience with that working from home as we've been teleworking for the last year and a half. And for a while, it was difficult for me because the computer was right there in my living room. That's my best, most scenic place in my house. And so it was really hard. I would walk by the computer and I would cruise by and I would check email at all sorts of hours. And so what I figured out was that if someone really needed to reach me, they would call me. And so I started turning the computer screen off so that I wouldn't see it when I passed by. I still have my work phone. I still can hear emails when they ding, so I can glance at them. But something about the computer was, it would suck me in. And once I sat down, I wouldn't get up for a couple of hours because there's no end to the work. I mean, I'm sure you all know that. There's always more to be done. And so what I have simply done is structurally created boundaries for myself, and people know if they need me, they can always call day or night, anytime. But that just limits some of the after hours work. I tend to work a lot, and I'm okay with that. My boundary is I have time when I take care of an elder and I need some time with my partner. So those times I like to preserve, but they're also flexible. So it's more the quantity of time that I want to preserve and make sure that I'm maintaining the connections with family.
Thank you.
Deborah, we're down to our last couple of questions. And most of these are pretty open to just let you ask us or share with us. So this question, do you have any closing thoughts or an answer you want to follow up on?
I think just as closing thoughts, I know I've said this to several of you before, but I'm very charmed by Duvall, and I've not applied. I've only applied for one other position as a city manager in the past year, because what's important to me is that the community feels like home to me. I need to fit, and they need to feel that they fit with me. And so for me, I see that in Duvall. I'm hoping you all see that in me as well, because I think that the styles need to fit or it creates friction. And so I guess that would be my closing thought. I definitely have some questions for you all. If you are open to questions, or if we don't have time for that, that's okay too.
Yeah, I think the mayor has our last question, and that will nail it for you, I think.
That is it. And that is, what questions do you have for us?
Okay, that was the question. So one of my questions is, having seen the growth in Duvall and knowing that growth always generates some kind of conflict. When places grow, sometimes there's growing pains. I'm wondering, what are your priorities for growth within the city? What do you want to emphasize? What are you most concerned about managing? If you have any thoughts on that.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to kick that off for council?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We certainly do have some urban growth areas, and there has been some concern about our moving forward with those. It has to do with traffic and schools and other things. But having said that, a practical reason we haven't annexed some of those into the city is we have a lot of growth going on inside the city, and most citizens see all that growth and go, whoa, this is moving pretty quickly. But in terms of plans, we certainly do have very set zoning. Most of ours in this area, we're rural residential community, so most of ours is R4, but we do have up to R20. And Those are really designed to help provide some more affordable housing best we can. We have some constraints because, folks own property, sometimes 5-10 acres in town or more, and they have property rights and it's zoned. And while our citizens get very concerned to see the higher density, it actually was designed that way many years ago. And so it's a very natural progression, but we do have folks that are concerned about it. And we as council certainly hear that, and where we can try to make sure that, there's a long range plan that all this fits in. I don't think any of us think that we're just trying to put a stop and no more building permits. That's not what's happening. But we certainly do want to try to find a balance here where the growth is manageable for us, and that means we try to keep up the services, make sure our roads and other things. But many cities, this isn't new. I think even the larger cities are experiencing the same thing.
And then
And
I wondered,
Go ahead. Oh,
No,
I was
was
just, going to say that in relation to that, I think overall the biggest issue the city has is our transportation. And I think, from the emergency management side, you probably know pretty well that our transportation planning doesn't necessarily keep up with what's actually going on. And the way that we plan for transportation in Washington State has created some really big issues, particularly out in our neck of the woods. So being a community just shy of the Snohomish County line, we can grow out to our maximum folks or not stop growing at all. And or stop. I'll take a step back. Sorry. If we stopped growing today and shut the doors, our transportation is going to continue to get exponentially worse because of the fact there are thousands of units being put in South Snohomish County. Highway 522 still has not been expanded to the size that it was supposed to be 20 years ago. That work is ongoing, but the bigger issue is that traffic is not going on 522. They're coming down 203 and going onto King County roads, clogging those roads, creating public safety hazards in good times and worse in bad times. And that is something that the city council can't solve alone and has to be solved primarily at the state level as far as transportation planning to start with, as far as those laws. But that really, I think, besides just residential growth, that is our biggest issue. There have been times in the past where we've had police officers that needed to get to town because an incident happened and they couldn't because of the 2-lane roads and traffic jams. And that is a consistent theme in our area as well as South Snohomish County in general.
I could see that also. Someone had raised earlier wildfire risk in the urban wildland interface, and I think that's one of the things that I see here is that there's few roads in and they're small, and it's hard to move people out fast if you need to.
Absolutely. And you had more questions?
And was what does your public engagement process look like? How involved is council? Like with meetings, open houses, conversations with the public. I know I talked a little bit about that with Laura, but wondered from your perspective, what does community engagement look like?
You guys want me to start off with that?
I've got a few things whenever.
Okay, well, first of all, our public engagement is nowhere where we want it to be. We do not have a full-time communications or community outreach person. And with our directors being full-time working directors, it's very difficult to do what we would like to do as far as public engagement. Historically, pre-pandemic, we were able to hold series of town halls, and there were numerous outreach efforts there, mail, postcard, QR code, etc. The work that we do primarily is definitely using our social media sites for outlets. Our police department has, I think, at least 10,000 followers. So far outside of our city's reach, and community definitely keeps track of things, utilizing that. But ultimately, beyond the traditional means, we're not nearly where we want to be. And that's going to take, frankly, additional staffing to do the necessary public outreach for big things. For public works projects, et cetera, we do the standard, standard public notices, mailing to residents, when possible, doing open houses. But especially the last 2 years in particular, there hasn't been the ability to do much of that due to COVID.
Could I chime in super quick? Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this council has agreed that we want to have a committee focused on public outreach. And I think it's developing ideas of what does it look like every time so that we don't have to rehab that conversation of what does council want to see from the community in terms of involvement and input. So we have not staffed or worked in that committee yet, but just wanted to let you know that we're all very excited about that. And we want to kind of develop a policy around it and really hash out what exactly we need and what's plausible with staff workloads, et cetera.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Mike Remington.
Mhm.
Councilmember McHenry is awfully humble. She's actually taken a lead years ago about trying to get our council meetings videoed. And that's turned into the city now being on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube. She has also spearheaded our having what we call council chats, where she picks areas throughout the city, might be the library or a coffee house, and people can come down and meet council members and just talk about anything. And those are announced on the mayor's, she puts out a regular mayor's communication along with the utility bill. So they list those meetings. So we actually seek that, but it's just tough to get people involved. And I don't know if that's a really good thing because they don't have a lot that they're upset about with city government. But certainly we're looking for ways to improve that outreach.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, Deborah?
Well, how are we on time? I could keep going.
Ryan's the timekeeper.
I think we're about ready to wrap it up, and I think I'll come get you, and then I'll give you direction outside, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you all. It was so nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Bye-bye.
Is this working okay for everybody with the questions? I just kind of randomly wrote names down on the sheet, so I appreciate it. But anything we need to change up at all?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we're going to keep it the same and as through each one. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Mayor, thank you for the good weather for the meet and greet. If it had happened a couple of days ago, I don't know.
Yeah, we got lucky. The rain was quite something last night, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm trying to school my expression, but I am at Big Rock Ball Fields waiting for my son's practice to get done. So I will apologize in advance for the smiling and waving because, you know, I see everyone I know. So if that seems super random, I apologize.
I thought you were waving at me. I kept wanting to wave.
You can interpret it that way too, sure.
Mayor, you had sent an email to all council members about an employee headed to a new job opportunity. Is that public yet, or is that still internal?
Relatively internal, and we can only talk about, it's a special council meeting, so we can only talk
Yeah.
about the business item. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about it more tomorrow.
Sure. I was just curious if it had been made public.
I had a little bit of a panic attack today because I thought it started at 2.
Oh, our meeting?
Yeah, I was reading through and I saw 4. So I'm like, wait, this sounds like it should be occurring now. And I thumbed through my things and I was looking through documents and I thought I was still in my pajamas at 2. So I was like, I got to change clothes. I think the meeting's starting now. And then I thought, just read the whole email, Diane. If you just do fact finding properly. So once I read through it, I figured out what's really going on today.
Mayor, are all the candidates using the same computer, or are they rotating? Are they in different spots around the city?
I'm not sure if they're in the same spot or rotating.
I have a question on the the sheets with the questions. There's a scoring column. Are we just doing that for our own personal benefit, or okay, we aren't. turning
But
these in.
those are required to be retained by the city, so you will need to turn all of your notes in to the city clerk.
I was just going to say that. Thank you.
So actually, at the conclusion of this meeting, if you can turn them into Jody tomorrow, that would be fantastic. Either scanned or original copies.
This pen doesn't have spell check, so best wishes to you.
So Kevin is getting set up, so he should be here momentarily.
Excellent.
Mayor, are the
Mhm.
is the scoring required, or if we were more wanting to provide a summary for each candidate, is that acceptable as well?
Ryan?
Or sorry.
Absolutely. The scoring is a support device. Some people feel more
Okay.
comfortable. It's not required. This is not a civil service hire. It's subject to a lot of subjective information, much of which will be on the mayor's shoulders to weigh. So yes, however you'd like to provide input, you don't even need to write anything down. If you'd like to have a verbal conversation, it is your choice.
All right, thanks so much.
And I would be remiss to say, Mayor, if I didn't recognize all of your extra efforts that have gone into this evening tonight and today. And it's involved a lot of input and more to follow. So thank you. It wouldn't be possible except for the whole team effort.
Absolutely. It's quite the process for sure. And it's definitely much more extensive than the last time the city hired a city administrator.
Sorry, there was a miscommunication between our folks helping each other, helping the candidates out. So we're getting, I think it's Kevin, set up right now. So he should be joining us shortly.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, we are still recording and live on Facebook.
Well, thank you to whoever brought the ice cream bars and the yogurt bar. That was nice and refreshing out in the sunshine. Really good.
We found out what the miscommunication was. I ushered Deborah out the back. And so they didn't know that I had done that. So they were,
Oh.
they were waiting for me to say anyway, I thought it would be seamless. So anyway, my responsibility. So we'll just do it the same way next time. All right. I'm hoping we'll have some time at the end of this to provide reflections also to you, Mayor. Anything that people want to say would be helpful, probably right away.
That would be great.
Do you think he needs help signing in, or is he?
No, I literally, right when he came in here, he was just, yeah, I told him to check his email. And he will knock on the door.
Kevin is logging in. Even electronic communications take a minute. We have liftoff.
All right. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. I am not Ryan Cotton, but
The clerk might be able to change your name there.
I can-
Well, thank you for being here tonight. I hope you've had a chance to meet all of the council members already. So I think you are hopefully familiar with everyone's names. So we'll go ahead and get started in just a moment, but this will be very much like our other rounds so far, where I'll kick it off and Mayor Pro Tem will go, and then we'll go round robin with the council on questions and go from there. So are you ready to go?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Excellent, thank you. Well, first of all, tell us about yourself and what qualities and experience you can provide Duvall after reading the city's recruitment brochure.
So for anybody who I've already done this spiel before, I apologize. I grew up in Michigan. I went to a small college in Michigan and really wanted to do something in public service or public area. Went off to grad school to do international relations in England, and realized I didn't really want to do foreign service. So I joined the Navy as an officer. My main job was driving ships. I did that for quite some time. Before I retired, I started working doing counter explosives and counterinsurgency, and I thought maybe this is where I should go when I retire. It's definitely a valuable career, and be a civilian with the Department of Defense. And then I spent my last 3 years being the operations director for Naval Station Everett. And at that point, I realized what I really wanted to do was work in small communities or work in communities, because you have so much more direct impact on the lives of people. You do great work in other areas, but that's an area where every single day you make changes. So while I was at Everett, I went to the University of Washington Evans School and got a Master of Public Administration because I really wanted to become a city administrator. And that's kind of in a nutshell where I got to where I got. I think, the qualities I have by looking at the brochure and in general, being a city administrator before, the ability to be resourceful, to be flexible, to be able to continue to not only to follow a plan, but also to know when you have to make changes to a plan, to communicate those changes with everyone, and lead a team and really build a team, because the employees that work in municipalities are often undersung. They work hard, and if they don't feel the respect. And if they don't feel that the leadership really understands what they do and how they do it, then you're not going to be successful, because that's really where cities succeed. So I think I've got good team building skills from all those years. So I think those are my main traits: just the ability to adapt to change, be innovative, and also build that team and get everybody together and working together.
Thank you.
Well, Kevin, what most intrigues you about serving the city of Duvall, and what gets you most excited?
Well, I know Duvall. I've lived in or had a house in Monroe for, what is it now, 8 years. So Duvall is a great town. It's got a lot of challenges because, of course, it's growing so fast, like a lot of Western Washington is. Monroe, my town, is doing the same. So, but I think those are challenges, are also opportunities. There's the ability to really make some great positive planning, so that as the city grows, that it grows the right way, and it grows in a very measured and planned way, so that we don't get ourselves behind financially or in planning wise, so that we don't grow. We grow in a nice, even way, and stay ahead. I think that's an incredible opportunity. I've been in other places. I've been in Edinburgh. We had very similar. We weren't growing, but the ability to adapt and change over time is really exciting for me. When I see Duvall and walk around downtown, there's so many areas where it's a great town, and it just really, I talked to a couple of the business owners about how do we get people to stop off at 203 instead of driving through and saying, oh, that's a cute little store. How do we get them to stop and walk around town? And I think there's an incredible amount of opportunity to do that. And I'm really excited about finding those solutions to get people to do that. Because I think once they stop, it'll be the place you go, once a month. You stop on a Saturday and go to Duvall, because there's so many great little things to do.
Thank you.
As the city administrator, you are an important part of the city's leadership team, along with the mayor. What is the most collaborative project you've led, and what stands out?
I think, sort of as a naval officer, everything you do is incredibly collaborative. But as a city administrator, I had a lot of collaborative projects. One of the most important ones was a 4th of July ceremony, or not ceremony, a 4th of July celebration. We had not been doing 4th of July celebrations for a while. It had been mainly run by 1 or 2 people who'd raised the money, buy the fireworks, worked with one neighborhood, and they did everything in one neighborhood and sort of did it for the entire community. And they, long before I had gotten there, say 5 or 6 years before I got there, decided they weren't going to do it anymore. They had worked too hard. They didn't get enough support of everyone else. So working with the university, we had a university in town, working with the local businesses, identifying people who could take that on and make it a real community event was really important. The university and the town had always had friction. Sort of, there had been a president who said, he said it openly, without the university, this town would be nothing. It would go away and blow away in the dust. And that was a statement he made, which didn't really engender a lot of love and respect between the two. So one of the things that was very important for me to do very early on was find ways that we could collaborate, move beyond what he had been gone for years, but the university, every time they made an overture, it would sort of fall apart. It would never get the respect. So we found a way for them to be the ones to offer the university campus for this 4th of July. And then we promoted it very heavily. Oh, wow, wasn't it great that the university offered this? And by doing so, we really brought everybody together. We got 5,000 people out of a town of very similar size to here to come to the first fireworks. And we kept, the drumbeat, which was, wow, the university is doing these great things for us. Isn't this wonderful that they hosted us? And we were involved hugely in the planning. But it doesn't matter who gets the credit. In the end effect, everybody saw it as, wow, the university is promoting this great 4th of July. Gosh, isn't it great that we've got 4th of July events again? Isn't it wonderful that we can all come together as a community again? And so we missed 1 year for COVID, and then this year we did again, and it was again about 6,000 people came. It was even bigger, and the university was really on board at that point because we'd shown value for everyone. The businesses felt really excited about sponsoring it. The university felt great about hosting it. We felt good about just having people be able to do a safe event where they really enjoyed it, which is what collaboration is all about. Everybody wins.
Thank you.
So like many municipalities, we face challenges in recruiting new employees. What strategies have you used to address these challenges and to attract underrepresented groups? How successful were these strategies?
I'll say the second half is not something that's easy to do. Underrepresented minorities, especially when you're underrepresented groups, especially when you're smaller towns. Our town was 93% white, and our surrounding area was less diverse. So I can't talk really well in personal exemplar terms about how we did that. What we did though was I did get a few candidates, for example, for police, where we had people of diversity apply, and we made sure that they were given a fair shake, that the personnel committee didn't just push them out. Oh, well, they're not from here because they were coming from Pittsburgh. And we made sure that at least they had a fair scene. They got an interview and did well on the interview, but didn't get selected. But at least they were given a good opportunity. The first half was, I think, attracting employees a lot of times has to do with the work environment that they're in. Our public works guys, we knew that they didn't really get paid how much they could get paid in the non-municipal world, especially streets and paving. But what we did was made it so that they enjoyed their job and they felt worthwhile, and they were treated well by the community, that the community saw their value. Especially since we get 150 in Edinburgh, we got 150 inches of snow a year. So snow plowing is really important. So every time that they did a good job at Christmas Eve when we had snow, is we made sure that the city council, everybody was pushing how great of a job our public works guys were. How that trickles down is when we have a new spot available, they self-select a lot of times. They know who's a good candidate. They know the young guys and gals who they would like to work with, and they help bring them in. And they'll also say, I really like him, he's my cousin, but I'm not going to work with him because I need a good team member who's going to pick up the slack when we need somebody to really work hard, and really let them help us identify who would be a really good worker. We make sure that they're part of not sort of the formal interview process, but the identification of who we should find. What's a good young candidate who's going to be here for 20 or 30 years, and then try to take care of them. We also do it by things like being hands-on with talking to them about retirement. We didn't have a pension for our new non-uniform personnel that had gone in a contract well before me, but we were heavily involved in making sure that they had time and they had the resources from our financial companies so that they would feel like they can get to retirement. And we told them, we said, oh, if you're talking to your 401k advisor, which is something that we're helping to fund, that's your work time. You don't have to do it at 6 o'clock at night. You can do it during the day. You just tell us when you need it. And if we have, if you have availability, absolutely, they can come in on our time, because we want you to feel like we're here for you for 20 years or 30 years. We want you to retire here. You're a good worker. And I think that engenders not having to not have to worry about getting new people, because you're retaining them and you're valuing them.
Thank you.
Okay, how do you find ways to lead when opinions are vastly different and sometimes polarized?
I think you go down to your core values, which is we're here to do what's best for the community. And you you have to focus on making sure that you're not discounting other opinions and saying, oh, that's just wrong. is finding the value in everybody's opinion and not just saying from the very beginning, oh, that's not right and you don't understand what you're talking about. You really have to focus on what's coming from that point of view. What validity does it have? How do we integrate that into our solutions, or at least identify it? How to use it, for example, as a reason for having mitigation. So they may have a good point, but it may not be the whole. If I had a good example, I'll try to think of something where you say, look, you're right in the fact that that's going to cost a lot of money. Here's how we're going to mitigate that. You have a very good point. And how we can look at this project is by maybe making sure that we have more state funding before we try to get a bond. Because I agree with you, this is a really expensive project. But here's why we prioritize it. Here's what the cost is going to be when we rebuild that bridge or we have the state rebuild the bridge that goes between here and Woodinville. Here's why it's so expensive. And this is also why if we wait 10 years, it's going to be even more expensive. And why we need to do it now as opposed to in 10 years, or maybe, does that kind of make sense? What I'm trying to get to is you can't just discount them immediately. You take what you can from their argument and include it. And I don't know if the bridge is owned by the state or if it's owned by you all.
It's owned by the county.
It's owned by the county. Well, it's almost as bad as if the state owns it, right?
Actually worse.
Probably because they don't have as much money. But just being, in fact, I had a discussion with a person on the street. They asked me what I was doing there and why I was in a suit. And I told them, and they said, you need to fix that bridge. And I said, well, I don't know exactly, but I do know that that's probably not exactly the city. And they don't have the funds to do it. But she said, who do I talk to? I said, well, your state senator, your county councilor, that's where you get the prioritization. But come to the city, I'm sure they can help, because your voice helps them get prioritization at the state and county level. So, but she's not wrong, but she's, I don't think you have the budget to build a new one on your own. If you do, you're not paying Ryan enough.
I'm good.
Could you please give us an example of when you disagreed with your supervisor or governing body and how that disagreement evolved? And then how did it get resolved in the end?
I'm not good at examples. I have to say I'm not really great at remembering examples, because what I really try to do is everything is it sounds like I'm trying to cop out, but if I disagree, we come to a decision point, you just follow you still do it. I mean, you just find ways, unless you have an ethical violation problem. I had that before, or something where I had a commanding officer which was trying to do something unethical. There's no way around it. It's that's you're at a stuck point, and you either have to resign or you have to make if it's serious enough, you have to make a public statement to the lawyers about that, or to the law enforcement about that. But if I disagree, but it's just in principle, at some point you have to just agree to continue to move on, and you have to then rectify that situation. And ideally you talk to the person who you're disagreeing with, put your point forward, give good reason behind it, and then try to just make sure that the reason you think that's not a good solution, that you can continue to move forward with finding different ways to make it work. Because maybe you're right, maybe you're partially right, and you didn't understand other points, but you can still help. You can help shape the solution much better if you're actually part of the solution, as opposed to just being in opposition. If you see what I'm saying, it's you're not going to win just by win. You never win the argument by being right. You have to come to the conclusion that we have to find the solution together, and there's no way I'm just going to prove to you that you're wrong. I mean, I think we're in a world where there's so much polarization. People who really don't believe, for example, in mass, you're not going to prove that they're wrong. You can't prove it. You can't make them believe it. if you're a person who believes that they're never going to make you believe that you're wrong just by numbers or by telling you. We have to just kind of find what's the way we can work together to make sure that you feel comfortable and I feel comfortable, and we can move forward and get things done together. But that's not a very popular thing to do nowadays. People want to just be right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What skills and experience are you seeking to develop or improve, and how do you plan to accomplish such for yourself and with your leadership team?
I mean, I want to become a better listener like everyone. You know, I think everybody has very similar goals. I want to become a better listener. I want to be able to communicate better. Not that I don't think I'm bad at it, but I think that there's always ways that you can do better. I'd like to find out better ways to engage with the community. I think one of the things that I've been frustrated with for quite some time is if you look at when I was growing up, it was very easy to get information pushed out to people because you watch TV. It was on the news. People watch the news. It was on commercials. People watch commercials. And we now have a pull society. People pull information. They pull the information they want. And for a variety of reasons, that becomes very difficult, especially for municipalities, because we're trying to put information out there, which is of value, but it's not really polarized. It can be polarized, but a lot of times it's not very polarized. So people aren't pulling that information. Things like street work being done. In the old days, you would put that in the paper and people would read the paper. They would know that that street is going to be, they would alter their routes. Nowadays, it's very hard for you to get that information out to public because they're only looking for that they can pull. And that's not going to be on the type of media that they pull from. So I think one of the areas I've been trying to work on is finding ways that we can, as municipal leaders, get information to the people that they need for their daily life, and then be able to do that more often. Because also, if you have too much information out there, they don't hear anything. We did have one app that we got people to start using, and that helped, but it's a work in progress to try to get that information. Even things like public meetings. People would afterwards say, "Oh, I didn't even know there was a public meeting." Well, we put it out on all the normal means of communication. So it's an area I really would love to learn how to do that better, to get it so that people all know and engage if they want to engage, and at least positively not engage because they're not interested enough.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're on mute.
Kevin, share an example of how you worked with a group of residents to address a common concern they raised. And please provide a particular difficult constituent interaction and how you handled it.
Let me think. Well, I mean, I can talk about, we had an intersection of a US highway, which is controlled by the state, and a state highway. I know you'll have no issues with that here in Duvall, where trucks couldn't turn in any of the directions without really backing up traffic. It was a concern for a good number of the constituents, but there was also a good number who didn't want us to change because they wanted people to bypass town because they want the town to be quiet. Again, you can't force them to change their opinion. So what we did was we try to bring them in and have smaller discussions with our state Department of Transportation. We had open meetings where people could come in and look at the different options, and we told the state they had to bring at least 2 options so that people could at least hear them. We had open discussions to talk about the pros and cons of each one of the options. And we took weight. We took the opinions. We published what everyone said, as long as it wasn't inappropriate. Sometimes people put inappropriate comments in. And we try to take those into account and get that information back out. In the end, it wasn't, there were still people unhappy, but at least they were involved in the process to give information. We did make some changes to the traffic plan. Possibly not the best for traffic solutions, but made people feel that they were being heard, that their taxpayer dollars were being used the way that they wanted them to be used. And I think that was the best way of doing it, is just really trying to reach out as much as you could. Again, it kind of goes back to my last one, is to get people involved. How do you get them to come to the meetings instead of just sniping on a Facebook page, which is all about saying why everything's terrible. But try to engage them and say, well, then come to the meeting. Come to the meeting. You're going to be heard. It doesn't mean that we're going to do what you asked, but it does mean that we will listen to you and we'll try to take those things into account. And then publicly tell everybody, this is the changes we made to the plan because of input. Very early, we had 3 options. Option 3 was off the table because no one liked it. Everyone was upset with it. And because of what you said, and that helped people feel like, okay, we have some input, and we are being heard, even if we're not being able to direct things.
Thank you.
The job of city administrator can involve many hours. How do you establish work-life balance?
Yeah, it's always fun. And when I got out of the Navy, one of the great things was I felt I wasn't going to have to work a 140-hour week like I did on ships often. So, and then I found that, no, I'm still going to have to work some long hours, maybe not as much. I do think you have to do a good work-life balance. And if you're the leader, I think that there's a risk if you don't make a good work-life balance, that the people who you're working with also don't feel the permission to do that as well. They see you working extra hours and things like that, and you have to kind of prioritize and say, you know what, this will still be a problem tomorrow, and I'll have more energy, and we're going to tackle it tomorrow. That doesn't mean I'm putting it off, but I've got to go home. I've got a 10-year-old daughter. I need to see her. She needs to see me. And this is something we can wait for tomorrow or for Thursday. This is something can't wait. We've got to get this done because we've got to get this portion done. So I'm going to prioritize that. I'll work until I get that done, but I'm going to just push it off. So I think prioritization of your products is really important, and also giving permission for the people below you that you need to go home and see your spouse. You need to go and see your kids. You can't just work, because you'll burn out and you won't give us a good product.
Thank you.
Well, Kevin, we're down to our last couple of questions.
Mhm.
Do you have any closing thoughts or an answer you want to follow up on?
I don't have an answer I want to follow up on, but I like I said from the beginning, I came into city management because I really love the idea of helping people and being involved with the daily lives. I like to walk around downtown today. I had a little time in between. I didn't want to drive back to Monroe, and got to speak to a bunch of business owners. It's such an incredible town. There's so much energy here. And not that people haven't done a great job before, but I just think it's a wonderful place to be. It's not just a job. That's why I joined. I wanted to go into municipal government. I want to help people, and I love towns that actually really have huge hopes and dreams. And I just think this would be a great opportunity. I'm not really interested in just working to work. I want to find the right place, and you won't just see me applying to 15 places. This is one that I really was excited about.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kevin, I have the last question, which you'll be very familiar with. What questions do you have for us?
I always see when I'm on the other side of the table, I always do the same thing, and I always expect them to have a great question for you. but I think this has been a fairly open process. I've had a lot of time to talk to you, Ryan, and other people in this. So I think I get what this job is and what the hopes are for me. So I don't really have a lot of questions aside from just when do we build a new city hall? No.
Next year.
Okay. Because I did have to use the restroom, and I found it interesting that the restroom is a little bit bigger than the office. So.
Yes. It is
And
a challenge.
And I'm still looking for your desk, Amy. I don't know where that is.
Well, it's right now. It's in a corner of my bedroom.
Wow. Actually, one thing that came out to me is where does council meet? I mean, I know when we're not in COVID, where do you meet?
So we used to meet at the school district headquarters, which is just one block up from City Hall. Council has decided they want to meet in our visitor center. So there's some significant investment that has to be made there. But in general, the city council has not met in a city space for well over a decade.
Right.
There just is not space in our existing facilities to accommodate council and the public. And our visitor center has some big challenges as far as capacity as well, that if there's any size of public meeting, we'd quickly get over fire standards, which is a big challenge. So it really facilitates the need to have a city facility that's our own, that has our own equipment and our own infrastructure and space for the public.
Oh, I see that. I was thinking about that. That was one of the things I was thinking when I came up from the depot. I was like, wait a second, where do they meet? Because I haven't seen a space yet.
Yeah, and that's been a challenge. Actually, Councilmember Brodnicki remembers actually when I first came on council, we met at the fire district in the training room. And that was smaller than the visitor center as far as space. And then we moved to the school district. And now we spent some time at the visitor center. That did not work out well. But it looks like that's where we're headed again when we meet in person. And hopefully with the government facilities plan moving along, we can, depending on what budget looks like, get some funding to bring on somebody to start the design and site selection process at City Hall. One of my dreams is to have ground broken before I leave this office. When, if any luck, definitely something moving forward and, foundation in the ground or what have you. It's something the city's needed for 15 years and we just haven't been able to get there.
Yeah, because most of the questions you had, are involved with that too. Is how do you engage with the public when you don't really have a good public space to engage with them? Because offices are nice, but it's good to have a place where you can actually present things and show them, and they can be up for display for a while, so people can actually see it and engage with it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the city's biggest issues as well is that city council has never had a place in a city facility. So many jurisdictions will have a couple of desks or cubicles where council members can rotate in or out, and ours don't even have so much as a cubicle. And that creates some challenges. And so hopefully within the next few years, we'll really begin to rectify that situation.
Excellent. Well, look forward to it. If I'm not chosen, I'll still look forward to it because it's my area. I mean, whether good or bad, Monroe succeeds and fails by what Duvall does, which does what Coronation does, and we're all part of a single growing entity, and so we all want to succeed. That's one of the reasons why I love municipal government. Is it's not a zero-sum game. Microsoft looks at Apple's success as being that's money we're not getting. In municipal government, we're all succeeding because our residents are succeeding, and then the next town over succeeds as well. We all want to succeed. There's no zero sum in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for your time, and I hope you have a lovely evening and can get home to your family and hopefully enjoy some time with your daughter before she goes to bed tonight.
I will. I'm on the road as soon as we're off.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. You turned on a light, Dot. It was getting pretty dark in there.
Yes, it was, but I didn't want to interrupt what he was saying, so it's like, should I turn it on now or should I just wait? I'm getting like more and more like some type of a movie where you only see Hitchcock movie, probably, right? You only see half the person. Yeah.
I had the same issue. I got to go down and invest in the clapper, so I can just clap my hands and get a light.
Oh, it's easy, Mike. Just hook them up to Alexa enabled plugs.
What's
And
Alexa?
all you have to do is say, Alexa, turn off. My daughter's lamp in her room is called the sun. So she just tells Alexa to turn off and on the
I
sun.
love it.
That's
I think
good.
our kids eventually shut it off because the grandkids were having too much fun with Alexa.
Actually, my Alexa in my room is hearing that and responding.
Oh.
We call her Clarissa in our house when we want to talk about the device without it answering.
Without it.
There's a funny Saturday Night Live skit on that one too. I'll have to share it one of these days.
Can you change the voice on the home system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you absolutely can. I don't even know how many Alexa devices we have now at this point, honestly. I think we have Alexa devices in almost every room.
Pretty handy, isn't it?
They're great. Some of them were gifts, some of them were prizes, and some of them we just pick up on Prime Day when we needed them. So definitely helpful. My children love asking mathematical questions, or how many days until their birthday or Christmas. And my son's great at finding obscure facts, asking obscure questions and getting great answers from it. It's kind of fun.
Am I getting better on the light?
Yeah. You need a selfie ring to attach to your computer. I got one early in the pandemic, but I've had good enough lighting where I haven't had to use it lately.
Well, this is a magnifying light. So when I do really intricate little stitching, I can see, so I look down through the top, and that's why it lights everything down.
This one will actually clip on. I don't think it's charged right now. Nope, it's not, but it'll just clips right onto the top of your computer and puts a ring of light, which is kind of.
Is it like a halo? Is that your halo?
It doesn't present like a halo, but it's I wish it was charged, but it's only like $5 or $10. So it's a small one, but they have much bigger ones for folks that are doing more professional zooming or videos.
Are you using it right now?
No, this is just my normal light. The battery's dead on this one, so I haven't used it in quite a while.
Well, I have to say, I have to go to Nordstrom's and get an update on how to put makeup on for the camera.
You always have a halo, just a little angel halo.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Yeah, I could just see this little halo behind the Mayor Amy. Absolutely.
Should be in about 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, great.
Mayor, at the end of this, I was asked if there's information on the references. So I'm prepared to summarize them at the end and of course get them out to everyone later. Didn't want to burden or bury everyone. Also, I think you got the supplemental information for each candidate, the questions they answered.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Is the reference stuff you guys want in a public meeting?
I don't believe it's normally included. as far as the documents.
It's not.
No,
it's
I didn't
often
mean the documents, but whatever Ryan is referring to.
Yeah, it's often summarized in a sentence or two or three. So that's what
Okay.
I'm prepared to do.
Perfect. Just checking.
Laura,
And herein lies part of the challenge of not having even a conference room in City Hall. Having a conference room probably would have made this process a little bit easier for everyone in City Hall right now.
So I got a clarifying thing. So we're supposed to fill out our rating sheets and at the end of this tonight, is that what we're doing? It's been a many stage process. So I'm trying to keep track of everything I'm supposed to do.
it would be valuable for the mayor to receive your feedback. So that form is there for your convenience. If it works for you, it'll certainly work for that need. Otherwise, a phone call or an email would do the same.
Yeah, because it would be nice to be able to look at my notes and kind of think about it so I don't get stuck in fact finding. And I move up to one of the other modify. I'll be with the mayor then on modify. And Michelle and Diane Bernecki and Dana Mason.
Good company.
I think so. I think everybody's good company, but that's good company. See how I'm already using this? I know I'm trying to get those extra points. Got it right in front of me, boy. Managing change.
I really, really like the Colby assessment process.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's something I hope to use for every employee moving forward.
Well, I'm going to say that I think I'm a unicorn.
We already knew that.
I just was looking through it and like, oh, I see why I'm all alone in my little corner here.
But unicorns are fabulous creatures. So there you go.
It works really well. Yellows work really well when you're doing design classes and you're building. You need a lot of yellow to build, especially with children.
We're swapping out computers. There's some connection issues. So anyone want to talk about the football game?
Oh, that was brutal yesterday.
I'm happy. Penn State's won 2 weeks in a row.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got to adjust my flag. I've decided I have to put like buttons on the base of the flag so that it hangs much more clearly where I'm from, you know?
So when I walk through the neighborhood and walk by your house, I can definitely tell there's a Penn State flag there, Dot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
When the Seahawks missed the extra point, I just thought it's just 1 point. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite the game yesterday.
The other thing I really like is I really like college basketball. Not big on professional basketball or anything like that, but I love college basketball. One of the big things in this household.
Mhm.
Not for Penn, Penn State has never had a good men's basketball team, but they have had really outstanding women's basketball teams. But I don't think I even know anybody that went to a Penn State basketball team game.
Mhm.
So down in the ditch.
My alma mater has a great basketball program as well as a great football program. But that was definitely one of my favorite parts of college, was getting to go to the games, and especially when the football team went to the first quarterfinals for the national championships. That was quite fun. Cold. Standing on ice and marching band shoes at Joe Albi Stadium in Spokane in late November. That part was fun. But the rest of it was. Are we almost there, Ryan?
The computer is being physically delivered, a new replacement computer. Not new, but new for that position. It's already logged in, so hopefully it might be someone that doesn't look at all like Laura, but we'll see how it comes up.
I really like that art in your background with the mountains and on the reclaimed wood. It's beautiful.
Thanks. It's actually a part of my old fence too. And a friend of mine is the artist. She did that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mayor Amy, did I see that conference that you were going to be going to is back to being Zoom?
The National League of Cities, yeah, I decided actually probably about a few days after I sent the email out to council, looking at the new numbers and what we knew with Delta, I decided not to go in person. And so it's actually kind of nice that it's all online. I'm surprised they didn't do that with ICMA in a couple of weeks, but that's down in Portland, and Portland doesn't have capacity in their hospitals. So I'm really surprised that conference is continuing forward in person as well as online.
Yeah.
Jennifer, did your remodel project do okay in the heavy rain?
We survived.
I
It's
think
been a
most
journey.
remodel projects, that's what you do, you survive.
No, we're excited. It's going to be great. It's just, it's a process.
Brady started demoing one of our bathrooms at the cabin, and it's quite the mess. He's doing it all himself, so it's going to take us a long time to get our stuff done.
Well, you know what happens when you remodel? Now it goes to the next room, to the next room. And now we're like talking to a painter to do the whole interior and thousands of dollars. And now we need new furniture because we changed the whole look for everything.
Exactly, Diane. Like, then it makes the other parts that used to look sort of okay now look really bad in contrast, right?
Exactly.
And so it just moves around. And then how can you have your old cruddy furniture in your brand new room?
That's right.
Well, it
Terrible.
looks like we have Jeff on board.
We do have Jeff.
He's gonna
Welcome,
show
Jeff.
up It's gonna show up as me, you guys, because we couldn't get
You
into
mind if
the
I change
city.
the name?
He's gonna change the name really quick and I'm gonna exit out of here and go back into my office.
Okay,
Okay, thank
There we
you.
go.
great.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
And Jeff, if you're in the office on your own, you do not need to wear your mask if you would like to.
Okay, great. Works for me. Thank goodness. I
I know
appreciate it.
all the candidates have
Okay.
already met our requirements for our mandates here, so you're good to show us your
Right.
full face. So
Very
Jeffrey,
good.
did you get a chance to meet all of the council members at the meet and greet?
I did not. I
Okay.
did not meet Rick.
Okay, so Rick is not here today, so he's
Okay, then
Out
yes,
this
I
week.
did meet the council. Yes.
excellent, great. Well, with that, then we'll just go ahead and kick it off. This is going to be very much like our speed interview and our regular interview and what have you with where I'll kick it off. Mayor Pro Tem will ask a question and then we're doing round robin with the council members.
Great,
So as long as you're ready to go, we'll go ahead and get started.
sure.
All right. So my question for you is tell us about yourself and what qualities and experience you can provide Duvall after reading the city's recruitment brochure.
Okay. I'm someone who comes from a family where hard work and education is very important. That's led me to get degrees in public administration and urban and regional planning. I've worked in the public and private sectors, extensive experience in both, over 20 years in the public sector, working in community development, economic development, land use planning, community services, affordable housing, historic preservation, just a very wide variety of things, including also infrastructure. I have extensive experience working with citizen committees and boards, as well as elected officials and appointed officials. So I've spent more hours at a podium in front of city councils and county commissioners than I care to think about. So I'm very comfortable working with the public and working with elected officials. I think that I bring a great leadership style, an inclusive and kind of democratic leadership style, and am someone who just really enjoys public service and finds a great deal of value. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Jeff, what most intrigues you about serving the city of Duvall and what gets you most excited?
I think there's a couple of things, Mike. One is, when thinking about the recruitment brochure, there's just a lot of things that are going on that the city is in the midst of tackling or is planning to tackle in the coming years. And I'm someone who very much likes to have my hands in a lot of different pots. I like to be engaged in many different things at the same time. And that's one of the things that attracts me to the the city administrator position, sort of generally, as well as just looking at it, the issues that Duvall is dealing with are, I think, attractive and challenging. And some of them are things I've worked on before. Some of them are things that would be new to me, and I would very enthusiastically delve into them. From a personal point of view, my wife and I moved to Michigan to take advantage of a career opportunity for her, and we are anxious to move back to the Pacific Northwest. Michigan is nice and it's beautiful, but it's not the Pacific Northwest. And we also realize that we really want to be in a small town, rural environment and not in a larger city environment. And Duvall kind of fits, both bills, both professionally and personally, for what I'm looking for and what my wife and I are looking for.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, as the city administrator, you are an important part of the city's leadership team along with the mayor. So what is the most collaborative project you've led and what stands out?
That's a good question, Diane. And I think I've worked on many cooperative projects. One that I'm most proud of is when I was working for Douglas County, I led the creation of the Douglas County Housing Partnership, which was the first multi-jurisdictional housing authority in the state of Colorado. That included the county and 3 municipalities in the county. And over about a 2-year period, it meant working with staff and elected officials and appointed officials from the county and the 3 municipalities in the county to negotiate an intergovernmental agreement and to reach consensus in a place where affordable housing at the time was not necessarily a popular subject, but I think we helped a lot of people come to an understanding of the importance of it and the value of it. Once the intergovernmental agreement was signed and the housing partnership was created, I acted as the executive director for the first 6 months until a permanent director was appointed. So the housing partnership continues to operate and is doing good things for the residents of Douglas County.
Thank you.
So like many municipalities, we face challenges in recruiting new employees. What strategies have you used to address these challenges and to attract underrepresented groups? How successful were these strategies?
Forgive me, Michelle, would you repeat the first part of the question?
Sure. Like many municipalities, we face challenges in recruiting new employees.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies have you used to address these challenges and to attract underrepresented groups?
Yeah, right now, as I'm sure you're all aware, attracting warm bodies is challenging, much less people that are qualified and that can do the work. In terms of attracting folks, there are a number of things about it. I mean, one is certainly helping people understand that it's very interesting work. It's very worthwhile to be engaged in public service for those who perhaps haven't thought about it before. Certainly, one of the challenges is around pay and benefits, because oftentimes government organizations can't necessarily meet what is offered in the private sector in terms of pay and benefits. Although I think that is changing over time. I think that in terms of trying to attract folks, it's very difficult right now because there are a lot of people that aren't sure that they necessarily even want to come back to work, and people are reevaluating their options with regard to how they'd like to proceed. I think that just going forward, we need to think outside the box and do things that perhaps private sector companies have done for a long time, participate in job fairs, as well as expand the geographic reach of the area that we are recruiting, while also acknowledging that that some of the issues around pay and benefits are going to be more about the local area. So I think that those are some of the challenges and some suggestions for how we can go about attracting and retaining talent.
Thank you.
I do this every time. I'm so busy listening that I forget it's my turn. How do you find ways to lead when opinions are vastly different and sometimes polarized?
I'm sorry, Jennifer, when things are vastly different?
How do you find ways to lead when opinions are vastly different and sometimes polarized?
Okay. I think that is perhaps a time when leadership is most important. My leadership style involves a lot of listening and asking a lot of questions. And working hard to understand the multiple points of view that people bring to the table, and excuse me, and to to understand the background of those points of view. I think that it involves getting people to talk to one another and find common ground. And when common ground can't be found, sometimes it's about getting people to a place where even if they're not fully on board with something, can they live with a certain something? Because if the issue is one that needs resolution, and in a perfect world, resolution would mean everybody supports it 100%. That'd be great. But if the reality is that that someone is generally opposed to a particular solution, and you can convince them to, well, okay, I'll go along with it to see how it goes, even though they may not be enthusiastic, it can still be a win from the point of view of making a positive decision and being able to move forward. So I think it's about listening, asking questions, and working to get people comfortable, at least comfortable with with possible solutions.
Thanks.
Could you please give us an example of when you disagreed with your supervisor or governing body and how that disagreement evolved? And then how did it get resolved in the end?
When I worked for Douglas County, one of the things I was responsible for was evaluating, analyzing, and making recommendations on the establishment of special districts. And in Colorado, special districts are one of the primary means by which developers fund the cost of doing new development, subdivision, infrastructure, that kind of thing. And although special districts are created initially by a private organization, they are a public entity, and so they have to be approved by either a city council or county commissioners. So with that preface, had a situation in Douglas County where we had a developer who was very well connected politically, not simply locally, but at the state and also at the national level, and was bringing a lot of pressure to bear from local, state, and national folks, and pressuring the county commissioners to approve this special district. In evaluating the application for the special district, there were lots of problems with it, not the least of which is the zoning for the area that the special district was going to cover was not even allowing the land use that they were planning to develop, and therefore one of the basic and most fundamental aspects of the special district is that the land use be in place in order to excuse me, in order to establish the special district. And one of the things that it can do is it can issue debt, and to be able to issue debt. I got a lot of pressure from the county commissioners and actually from the department director about recommending approval of the special district. And I went back and forth for about 3 weeks, pushing back and pointing out to folks the problems, the many problems with the special district proposal. And eventually it was clear that the commissioners were probably going to approve it ultimately. And in the end, I felt that from an ethical point of view, I simply could not in good conscience, recommend approval of it. And I wound up recommending denial of it, but also provided the commissioners with sufficient information to make findings and include some conditions in the approval of it, so that at least we were kind of protecting ourselves. Ultimately, what happened is the special district had to be invalidated on down the line because they never did get the zoning and weren't able to move forward with the development. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I forgot I was next. Okay. What skills and experience are you seeking to develop or improve, and how do you plan to accomplish such for yourself and with your leadership team?
I think probably the thing that is most important for me, and I think probably most important for the city in this role, is the functions around human resources and the work that needs to be done to put or finish putting human resources policies into play, and make them policies that work for the city, but are not too onerous to administer, and are not too complicated for the staff, and are appropriate to the number of staff people, but also reflect legal and other kinds of requirements. I think that I would continue to remain in contact with folks that I've worked with, and I would reach out to some folks and look for some assistance and support in that regard, as well as working with the city's attorney, and if necessary, reaching out to an HR consulting firm to also provide some assistance and support.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're on mute.
Jeff, share an example of how you worked with a group of residents to address a common concern they raised, and please provide a particularly difficult constituent interaction and how you handled it.
When I worked for the city of Federal Way, homelessness had become a challenging issue in the community, and unfortunately, there were a relatively small but busy group of homeless folks that engaged in what I would characterize as bad behavior and sometimes illegal behavior that extensively affected people in the business community, local businesses, where trash was dumped, cars were broken into, people were threatened, that kind of thing, and not surprisingly, the business owners reached out to the mayor and city council, looking for the city to do something about it. And part of the challenge is, it's not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to sleep outside. And so what we did was, reached out to especially the most vocal of the business owners, and began to have meetings with them to make sure we understood all of their concerns, and had a couple of particularly difficult meetings because the business owners wanted action. They wanted something done, and I think they wanted to hear that the police could take care of all of it. And then part of the challenge is homelessness, fundamentally is not a police problem. And they didn't really want to hear that from the point of view that they wanted something done, and we were limited in what the police could do, and the police had to respond to legal and bad behavior as opposed to homeless families that might be simply sleeping in the woods. And so we went back and forth for months, trying to find some kind of common ground with the business owners. Eventually we created a task force to deal with homelessness as best we could as a city, and included the business owners on the task force. It included business owners, nonprofit service providers, city staff, I think there were county staff on there, et cetera. So it was challenging, and it didn't completely resolve the situation, but at least I think the business owners felt heard, and they could see that at least some action was being taken, and the city was working to resolve the problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so the job of city administrator can involve many hours. How do you establish work-life balance?
I've worked hard all my life. There was a time in my life when working 70 hours a week was pretty common. That's quite a while ago, and quite a lot of common sense ago. I think it's important to work hard. I think it's also important to play hard. I think it's important also to provide a role model for especially for those that report to you and work under you, so that they don't see, gee, Jeff is working 60 hours a week, therefore he expects me to do that, which is not the case, and certainly has never been the case. And so that's a part of it, but I also am very fortunate to be reminded at home that there's a life outside of the office, and I enjoy spending time with my wife and spending time outside, engaging in recreational activities, going bike riding, going hiking, and that kind of thing. Also am finding I want more time to engage in other kinds of activities. I do needlepoint and I read a lot, so those are things that capture my attention and help me to remember that work is not all there is.
Thank you.
Well, Jeff, we're down to our last couple of questions.
Mhm.
Do you have any closing thoughts, or are there any answers that you want to follow up on?
I've shared this with a couple people, and I talked to the department directors about this today. I think one of the things that is really important along the notion of work hard and play hard is I think that humor is really important at work. I think it's something that actually builds morale and is part of team building. And certainly it's got to be respectful humor. But I think it's one of the ways that we all learn to enjoy work a little bit more and have a feeling of value in what we do and enjoy the folks that we work with, is to the extent that we can, again, respectfully maybe tease each other and be able to laugh about what we do, or something that has happened. So I think that's something that's really important, and I try to engage in that as a regular feature of what I do at work. So I think that's really important. I want to emphasize what we talked about at the outset, which is, part of what attracts me about the city administrator position is the challenge of being involved in all of the things that the city of Duvall is working on now and in the future. And it's what I characterize as controlled chaos. And that's an area where I thrive and I think do my best and would do my best for the city of Duvall.
Thank you. Now we're down to the last question, which is, what questions do you have for us?
In looking at the city's vision and the things that are priorities for the city, I've had the opportunity to look at those in the recruitment brochure, et cetera. And I'm curious what you see as important for the city administrator in the first 6 months and the first 12 months with regard to accomplishing and moving forward with the priorities that the city has established.
Well, from my perspective, I think, the candidates were given just the beginning of the mission, vision, goals document. So there's a lot more detail in the goals section. But from my perspective, really, one of our top priorities has to be our human resources policies and updates there. And helping see through the municipal financial plan, government facilities analysis, et cetera. And I really am a firm believer. One of my old bosses told me, who was also a former mayor, told me when I took this role, he said, listen for at least the first 3 months to 6 months and learn before taking big action. And I think part of my expectation for city administrator is to learn our processes, learn our employees, learn our council, learn our community, because in making sure that space is provided to me is incredibly important, because without that baseline, it's difficult to lead and manage. So from my perspective, kind of those key things that we're already working on are really important. And I think as we start moving into January, starting to plan for the next budget cycle, that's where the real work begins with getting some new priorities moving forward. But there are so many balls in the air right now with municipal financial planning, government facilities analysis, the implementation of our ERP software, and we'll have some new hires upcoming as well, that there's going to need to be a lot of focus on that and making sure that we're whole and that those projects get done first and foremost. But then I would also hope that a city administrator would attend certain meetings with me, for example, to get to know our legislators, get to know our congressional delegation, and get to know more of the regional players and the key people to build and maintain relationships with. Nothing gets done in our area without strong relationships, and they take quite a while to build. So outside of the city, it takes years often to build that good rapport within our local region. So to me, that's really, really important and a good foundation to be set.
Great. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, Jeff, I think the mayor really hit all the highlights there. I think it's so important to get to know all the employees, the directors, certainly the processes. I always get excited when someone new comes in because they have that opportunity to evaluate and say, hey, what do you think of this opportunity? And some folks, just want someone to come in and just keep it running the way it always has. But I think there's opportunities. Sometimes it's staff that want to try something new. And I think establishing that relationship with council, council is, in my time here, has shown themselves to be really involved and caring about the community and city. And I think making sure we have processes in place to get information early to council, have enough time for discussion. Sometimes it seems like that's truncated. So all of a sudden we're having an agenda bill at council and we're trying to make a decision. And so we are working currently, Ryan's working hard in one of our committees to try to say, are there some structural things to help that run a little bit smoother? But I couldn't be more excited to have you here, to have that opportunity to get somebody new on board that can help us improve as a city. This is such a great place to live. And I think that's why so many of us are working so hard, is we just owe it to this great community.
Great, thank you.
And I will add too that part of the reason I wanted to bring on an interim city administrator in between, while we work on this process, is to get some of those key kind of thorny things done, so that a city administrator doesn't have to focus on some of those really difficult tasks right up front. And trying to do what we can to set our next city administrator up for success.
That's great. Thank
Having
you.
that space, I think, is really important, to have that time to get to know folks. And you just can't expect somebody to dive deep in on thorny projects without getting the baseline first and getting that relationship building status going.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that
Okay.
concludes, unless anyone else has anything else to add, or did you have any other questions for us?
Not at this time.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and participating in this process. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here and to speak with you, have the opportunity to interview for the position. I do want to very clearly affirm my interest in the position and in the city of Duvall. So I very much have enjoyed being here, and looking forward to hearing from you. So
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mayor, I'll be right back after I say goodbye.
Okay, great. We'll wait for Ryan to guide us a little further.
Mayor, would you like to take a quick recess? Let everybody go get a drink of water, that kind of thing real quick, or?
I think that's a great idea. Let's take a 2-minute recess and come right back at it.
Okay.
Well, I just want to cover a few things that I tell all our clients, and that it only takes one, ultimately. This is a process of elimination. So it's important to focus, as we discuss, to the extent that we do tonight, focus on the positives, because there is no one perfect, but there are some elements that will resonate more, and those are the things that we suggest that we focus on. And it's important that you recognize that there is not over until it's over. So you might want to keep two in play as you think through the various possibilities, and also recognize the next stages. I'm going to summarize the references quickly, and I think you already have the supplemental information, but for the record, we did 2 reference checks on each candidate, and I had help from Sherry, and we divided up the load. And I think she got one for Deborah today that I have not seen yet. But the one that I do have, Deborah can be recognized as being savvy, according to her references, and the way that she understands how someone can be on point, or someone just needs to be heard out. She is able to read and navigate organizational motivations and behaviors and impacts. And she is an excellent representative of whichever organization she is working with. And when I get the second reference to her, I'll summarize that for you as well. I'm going to not belabor this, but I'm going to move to Kevin, and we have two for him. And one indicates that they liked his focus and his sense of humor. He's always open to looking at other possibilities, and that he's everyone's cheerleader and gets everyone charged up. So I'm highlighting three of the most important characteristics as I read them from his references. And by the way, there is no negative information on any one of the references that we looked at. Sometimes you get a sense by some of the questions we asked, like, is there something that could be improved upon, training they could have? Would you hire that person back again? Would you want to work with that again? We ask all those questions. And sometimes you get a sense, and in this case, you really can't make a mistake because everything that we've looked at so far, everyone is ethical, has integrity, and also was well respected. So the second one for Kevin, this person indicates that Kevin was at the top of my list as far as city managers go, because they worked with multiple ones in terms of effectiveness and helpfulness. When he was leaving Erie County, the Edinburgh, this organization, it was a regional authority, actually created a position for him if he wanted it, so he would stay, but he wanted to, as he said, be in Washington full term. And he created something that this reference mentioned, and he mentioned earlier, but did not mention tonight, and that was the first ever Embrace Edinburgh team of local community leaders that created vision and support for economic development. It included the college, nonprofits, the downtown, the chamber, etc. And he was viewed as energetic, competent, and visionary. The last gentleman you spoke to tonight was Jeff Watson. And in looking at a former supervisor in Snohomish County, where he had worked, he was viewed as dependable, reliable, works well with community and elected officials. He worked closely with elected officials to set priorities, set budgets, and was expected to fix problems when they arose. Professional, reliable, and committed. Another person who was his subordinate, so he supervised this person, said some of the elected officials had extreme personalities, but he was good at dealing with them. He can take emotion out of a situation and just deals with the data and the facts. He is very caring. So that gives you some feeling as to how they were viewed by people who worked with them for years. And the last thing I would say is at some point, the mayor will need to make a conditional offer, and that conditional offer is subject to the background check, which will include driver's license, motor vehicle, criminal credit, as well as an employment agreement. Well, both council concurrence as well as approval of an employment agreement. And next week, for those watching from the community, we have a meeting set for Tuesday the 28th, if all those things come together, for your action on those matters. Thank you.
Does council have any questions about that remaining process? All right, then I would just ask that you get your feedback to City Hall by probably noon tomorrow, because we are in a tight time crunch. There's a lot of other things going on in addition to this. So we need all the time we can get to have internal discussions as well about the candidates and make a preliminary decision and get a letter out so that we can meet our timelines. Councilmember Lingle and then Councilmember Rudnicki.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, okay, so how do I get my feedback? I mean, there's the rating process, obviously. What other, in the interest of time, what else can I do to get my feedback to you or whoever you want it to go to?
I think I would love to, I think both Ryan and I would love to hear the feedback. So if you feel comfortable putting it in an email, I think that's okay. Otherwise, I know that I can probably carve out some time Tuesday afternoon or midday Wednesday, but I will not be able to do anything related to it on Thursday, Friday, or over the weekend.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask this then. Is it enough for me to give you my ranking in an email? And then if there's a couple specific things I want to convey, try to catch up with you or Mr. Cotton, Yeah. I have just really one thing I want to share with you directly. So,
okay.
Otherwise, I can just rank them and send that in.
Great. Well, let's try and touch base by phone tomorrow then.
Okay, you tell me when you want to do that.
I can
both get up early, so whatever you want.
I've got 12:30 open.
12:30? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you a call.
Okay, perfect. Councilmember Rudnicki first.
Yeah, can I just take a picture of my score sheet and send it to you?
Sure. Jody will need the hard copies though.
Okay.
You're welcome to just send a picture and send it to me.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor, I'm just checking to see if you wanted any feedback or comments from council this evening. If you felt that appropriate.
I'd be happy to entertain it, but I also don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable with saying anything on the record if it would be uncomfortable for folks to do so, or if you think it would make the candidates uncomfortable. But I'm definitely open for that. I just don't want to put anybody on the spot.
I thought this was fun.
It's always fun, and this is much more extensive process than was done with the previous city administrator. So that's exciting as well.
Fortunately, I missed that one.
Well, I had babies, so I was not able to participate as much in that last process either.
Babies are blessings.
They are. They are, but we had, a good council. So really all that mattered is that 3 or 4 of them were able to participate in the process. So it worked out well from that side.
Anybody wants to drop their stuff off, at City Hall, they can drop it in the Dropbox in an envelope with my name on it. And I can scan that and get that over to the mayor and Ryan as well, to make it a smooth kind of thing if that's convenient for you guys as well.
All right. So it sounds like everybody's pretty quiet. So I'm assuming that means folks want to provide their feedback via email or phone call. Ryan, do you have anything else to add tonight?
You're on mute.
I don't. I just hope everyone goes home and enjoys the rest of the evening. You are.
I think we should aim to adjourn our meeting even earlier tomorrow.
I agree. Anything we can do to move our meeting up. It's a heavy night meeting week for all of us. And
I was just kidding.
All right.
My
so
last official one.
There you go. So we are, we don't have any further discussion tonight. So with that, unless there are objections, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.